Below is scene 1 expanded to approximately 1,000 words, with no headings, as you requested. Dash dash dash. Michael Hale pressed his thumb against the polished metal handle of his suitcase, feeling the coldness seep into his skin as he walked slowly through the quiet terminal. The airport felt unusually hollow for such a large, bustling place, its echoey ceilings and glowing white lights turning every sound into a soft, distant hum. At nearly midnight, the world had thinned out to only a handful of travelers, a couple of janitors, and the blinking lights outside on the runway. It was the kind of emptiness that made a person painfully aware of how alone they were. He stopped near a long row of windows just as another announcement crackled through the speakers, the 4th delay of his flight in the past hour. His shoulders sagged. He knew he could have taken his private jet, but he didn't want to. Not tonight. Tonight, he needed something different. Something real. Something that didn't keep him floating above the world, untouchable and unreachable. But instead, all he had found was more distance. Michael sank into a plastic chair and tugged at the knot of his tie, loosening it just enough to breathe. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, tired eyes, sharp suit, hair still perfectly in place though everything else inside him had unraveled. He had spent years building an empire, but no one ever told him that success came with a kind of silence that grew louder the higher one climbed. The silence of rooms where no one challenged him. The silence of homes too big for one person. The silence of nights where work and exhaustion were the only things waiting. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and tried to shut out the memories pressing at him, the arguments, the goodbyes, the losses, when suddenly a small voice floated toward him, soft but clear. "Are you lost too, mister?" His eyes blinked open. A little girl stood just a few feet away, staring at him with curious brown eyes that seemed too observant for her age. Her hair was pulled into a lopsided ponytail, strands sticking out like she'd run her hands through it too many times. She clutched a stuffed rabbit, one ear drooping, the fabric thinning from years of love, and her tiny suitcase stood behind her, covered in colorful stickers of stars, clouds, and smiling fruit. Michael straightened, confused. "Lost." She nodded without hesitation and took a step closer. "You look lost," she said simply, as if pointing out the color of his shoes. "That's how I look when I can't find where I'm supposed to go." He opened his mouth to deny it, but the words didn't come easily. People didn't normally point out his emotions. People didn't normally see him at all, not past the titles, the money, the walls he kept perfectly built. Yet here was this tiny stranger peering straight into him. "I'm not lost," he said finally, though his voice sounded weak, the lie thin and fragile. "Just waiting." "Me too," she replied, plopping herself into the seat beside him as though she had already decided he was safe. Her legs dangled in the air, far from reaching the floor. "Me and Mr. Bunn. Our flight got delayed because they said something was wrong with the big metal bird." He blinked. "The plane." She hugged the rabbit. "But it's okay. Mom's fixing it." He raised an eyebrow. "Your mom's a pilot." "No," she giggled. "She's talking to the people at the desk. She says they always mess things up, but she uses a different word sometimes. She says I'm not allowed to say it." She looked around, then whispered, "It starts with an S." Michael couldn't help it, an unexpected laugh slipped out. It was small, rusty from years of disuse, but real. The girl grinned, pleased with herself. "What's your name?" she asked. "Michael," he said. She repeated it, testing the sound. "My name's Lila. This is Mr. Bunn." She held out the rabbit as if introducing a diplomat. "He's very smart. He never gets lost." Michael pretended to shake the rabbit's paw. "Nice to meet you both." Lila swung her feet, humming a tuneless melody. Then, without warning, she leaned forward and peered closely at his face. "Why are your eyes sad?" Michael froze. It was such a simple question, spoken with genuine concern, not prying or judgmental. Yet no one had asked him anything close to that in years. He had mastered the art of the unreadable expression, calm, firm, in control. Investors trusted it. Employees respected it. Reporters misinterpreted it. But a 7-year-old had looked at him for less than 2 minutes and unraveled it. "I'm not sad," he said automatically, almost defensively. Lila tilted her head like she didn't believe him. "Mom says grown-ups lie about being sad because they think it makes them weak." He inhaled slowly. "Your mom sounds smart." "She is." Lila's voice softened. "And I think you look like someone who needs a hug." The statement hit him harder than it should have. He swallowed. "I think I've forgotten what a hug feels like." She didn't move toward him. Instead, she placed Mr. Bunn gently in his lap. "You can hold him," she said. "He's good at making people feel better." He helped me when my dad went to heaven. Michael's breath caught. He didn't know what to say, so he just placed a careful hand on the rabbit. I'm sorry, he murmured. It's okay, she said with a small shrug. Mom says some people stay in your heart even when you can't see them anymore. I think that's true. Do you have someone in heaven too? His throat tightened. He nodded once. Lila nodded back, as though that was all she needed to understand. She didn't ask for details. She didn't offer cliches. She simply stayed beside him in quiet solidarity, the way only children could manage, with sincerity untouched by adult awkwardness. After a long pause, she pointed at the giant windows. Look, that plane looks like it's sleeping. Michael followed her gaze. The aircraft did look peaceful sitting on the tarmac, its lights blinking slowly like the heartbeat of some mechanical giant. Maybe you're just like that plane, she said suddenly. Not lost. Just waiting for the right time to fly again. He stared at her, stunned by the innocence and wisdom wrapped in her childish voice. Maybe, he whispered. Just then, a loud announcement boomed overhead, and Lila suddenly gasped. That's my mom's voice. I mean, the lady she was talking to. I gotta go. She hopped off the chair, grabbed her tiny suitcase, and began to run. But halfway across the aisle, she turned back toward him. Michael, yes, don't stay lost, even if you think you are. Then she dashed off, her shoes tapping wildly against the floor, leaving him alone again, but not in the same way as before. Something had shifted. Something in her words had slipped past the walls he'd kept around his heart. And for the first time in years, Michael wondered if he had been lost for far longer than he realized, and whether a little girl with a stuffed rabbit had just shown him the way out. Here is Scene 2 expanded to approximately 1,000 words, without headings, just as you requested. Michael stayed seated long after Lila had disappeared from sight. The airport remained quiet, but something inside him buzzed with an uneasy warmth. He was not used to being seen, not emotionally, not truly. Yet a simple child with a squeaky suitcase and a rabbit had looked at him and named what the rest of the world never dared to. Lost. The word echoed in him, uncomfortable but true. He exhaled slowly and stood from his chair, moving toward the wide windows. Outside, dawn was still hours away. Planes glowed faintly under the floodlights, their metallic bodies shimmering like sleepy giants waiting for the world to wake. He placed a hand against the glass and watched his reflection merge with the runway beyond, two versions of him, both uncertain which direction to go. Footsteps approached from behind, light, hurried, slightly uneven. Before he could turn, a familiar voice called out, "There. That's him, Mom. I told you he'd still be here." Michael turned, eyebrows rising in surprise as Lila came running toward him, tugging her mother behind her. The woman looked tired but relieved, her hair slightly disheveled and her coat half-zipped, as though she had rushed through the terminal searching room after room. "I'm so sorry," she said immediately, out of breath. "She wandered off before I could stop her. I hope she didn't bother you too much." "She didn't bother me," Michael replied honestly. "She, actually made my night a little better." Lila puffed up proudly, as if she had accomplished a heroic mission. Her mother shot her a look that meant we're talking later, but visibly relaxed when she saw the kindness in Michael's expression. "I'm Sarah," she said, offering her hand. "Thank you for being patient with her. She tends to adopt people." Michael shook her hand gently. "It's nice to meet you, Sarah. And she didn't adopt me. I think she rescued me." Sarah blinked, surprised. Her eyes softened. "Well, that's the first time her wandering has ever helped someone." Before Michael could respond, a new announcement echoed through the speakers. "Passengers of Flight 311 to Seattle, please be advised, due to mechanical issues, your flight has now been officially canceled." Sarah groaned. "Great. Just what we needed." Lila tugged her mother's sleeve. "Does that mean no grandma?" "No," Sarah said, rubbing her forehead, "it just means we'll have to wait until morning, honey. The airline will probably give us a hotel voucher." Michael's phone buzzed immediately. His assistant had already sent him 4 rescheduling options and 2 private jet alternatives. He could be anywhere he wanted within an hour. Yet his feet remained firmly planted where they were. He watched Sarah pull out a crumpled stack of papers from her bag, her expression turning more stressed by the second. Lila, however, glanced between her mother and Michael with a bright, hopeful look. "Mom," she whispered loudly, "can Michael stay with us tonight so he's not lonely?" Sarah's face flushed crimson. "Lila, you can't just. He can, if he wants." Lila insisted, crossing her arms like a miniature lawyer defending her case. Michael chuckled softly. "It's okay. I don't want to intrude." Sarah shook her head quickly. "You wouldn't be. We're just trying to figure out the vouchers and hotel they offered us. It's complicated. Complicated, Lila repeated. They made Mom use her angry voice. That means it's very complicated. Sarah groaned again. Lila, Michael gestured toward a seating area nearby. Why don't we sit and sort everything out together? They moved toward a cluster of seats near a vending machine that buzzed loudly every few minutes. Lila skipped ahead, dragging her suitcase as its wheels squeaked cheerfully. She hopped onto a seat and began swinging her legs again, humming as if this were all part of a grand adventure rather than an airport inconvenience. Sarah sank into a chair with the heaviness of a single parent who was holding too much at once: responsibility, exhaustion, worry, and a child whose energy never seemed to run out. She sighed. This night is turning into a disaster. It's not a disaster, Lila chimed in. Because Michael is here. Sarah gave her a look but then offered Michael a shy smile. She really likes you. I like her too, he admitted, surprising himself with the honesty. They exchanged a glance, one filled with a quiet understanding. For the first time in years, Michael was talking to someone without the filter of business or reputation shaping his words. Sarah leaned back. So, Michael, what do you do? He hesitated. I'm in business. Oh, she raised a brow. What kind of business? Lila gasped dramatically. Mom, he's the man from the magazine. Sarah blinked. What magazine? The one in your doctor's office. Lila said. He was on the shiny page and it said he was the big boss of lots of things. Slowly, recognition dawned on Sarah's face. She looked at Michael again, really looked, and her eyes widened. Michael, Hale. He braced for the shift, but it didn't come. She didn't flinch. She didn't straighten up or become overly polite. She simply exhaled softly. Well, she said, that explains the sad eyes. Michael froze. People had called him powerful, strategic, intimidating. No one had ever called him sad. But she was right. Lila leaned against him then, her small shoulder pressing into his arm with trusting warmth. See, I told you, Mom. He's lost. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. Lila, but Michael shook his head. It's okay. She's not wrong. Something in his voice made Sarah's expression soften again. Lila climbed onto her knees and peered up at him. You can be in our family for tonight, she announced confidently. Until you find your way. His chest tightened unexpectedly. The words hit him somewhere deep, somewhere he had kept locked away for years. Thank you, he said quietly. They spent the next hour together. Lila made him hold Mr. Bun, explaining the rabbit's various superpowers. Sarah and Michael talked about travel, about childhoods, about life plans that never happened the way they were supposed to. He found himself confessing pieces of truth he had never spoken aloud, how the higher he climbed, the lonelier he felt, how losing his parents left a hole work could not fill, how he sometimes forgot what it felt like to be truly seen. Sarah listened without judgment. Lila leaned against him until she eventually fell asleep with her head on his shoulder. Michael barely breathed, afraid he would break the fragile peace of the moment. Hours passed like minutes. Dawn crept slowly across the airport floor, turning the windows into sheets of pale gold. An announcement finally rang out. Flights restarting, gates reassigning, passengers called to move. Sarah gently woke Lila. The girl blinked sleepily before turning to Michael with a soft smile. Are you still lost? She asked, rubbing her eyes. Michael knelt so he was level with her. Not anymore. She wrapped her small arms around his neck, squeezing tightly. He closed his eyes and held her just as gently, an embrace that healed something he didn't even realize was broken. When their flights were finally announced, they walked toward separate gates. Lila waved enthusiastically, Mr. Bun bouncing in her hand. Sarah offered a warm, lingering smile before turning away. Michael watched them until they disappeared into the crowd. And for the first time in years, maybe for the first time since he was a child, he felt something simple, quiet, and extraordinary. Found.